So let's start this off with a prayer. Father in heaven, please be with us today as we talk about a contentious subject. May we all do the right thing and give you honor and glory. In Jesus' name, amen. And this is continuing and talking about how we need to stand up for life, that abortion is a very big sin in the church and in the country, and we need to take care of this big problem. Stop the child sacrifice to Moloch. So today I will cover this article again that we didn't finish yesterday by Paul A. Gordon from the Ellen G. White Estate regarding the right to vote. Should I exercise it? But just before I do that, there was a very important part that he left out yesterday. Now, we talked about how she mentioned that, yes, we should vote. But in that same place that he didn't quote yesterday, from what I read yesterday, I will read today where Ellen White says that, yes, we should vote even if it is necessary on the Sabbath day itself. And this is a quote that very few Adventists know about. Okay, talking about a camp meeting in Des Moines, Iowa, opening Thursday, June 9. Now, this is in 1881. So this is just right before James White died. Okay. And they went to the camp meeting, and Ellen White declared, "We are here at the Lord's bidding for what special purpose we do not know, but we shall doubtless know as the meeting progresses." And the big issue of the day was temperance, and temperance means prohibition. In other words, no alcohol selling, no alcohol drinking. The idea is that Seventh-day Adventists wanted to get alcohol out of society. Here we got heavy rainstorm came up. Come on. Heavy rainstorm came up, calling for extra effort on her part to make the people hear. Following the meeting, she went to her tent, bathed, and retired early for the night. She reported what then transpired. Now, this is from her letter 5, 1881. And what it says here, let me see if I can get a little bit better. Let's do this one. Will that work a little better? Maybe you can see it a little bit better there. Okay, this is from her letter 5, 1881. In 1 hour, a message came for me to repair to the tent and speak to some points introduced in their business meetings upon the right of voting in favor of prohibition. I dressed and spoke to them about 20 minutes and then returned to the tent. So obviously this tent is the meeting tent. They're talking about voting for prohibition. And this tent here is her private tent where she was sleeping. Okay. What she said during those 20 minutes is not directly taken down. It's not directly taken down by anybody. But here we have, this is a 3 bio, page 159. This is written by her grandson, Arthur Lacey White. The issue under discussion was on the matter of voting for prohibition. 26 years later, G.B. Starr, laboring in Australia, was confronted with a similar question. He called to mind how Ellen White at the Iowa meeting related a dream in which she seemed to be in a large gathering where the temperance movement was being discussed. A fine-looking man with pen in hand was circulating a temperance pledge, but none would sign. As the visitor was leaving, he turned and said, and we covered this part yesterday. Okay. This fine-looking man in Ellen White's dreams is always an angel from God, always. It says, God designs to help the people in a great movement on this subject. He also designed that you, as a people, should be the head and not the tail in the movement. But now the position you have taken will place you at the tail. So God wanted Seventh-day Adventists to be at the head of the prohibition movement, not the tail. But if we're not going to sign the temperance pledge, we're not going to vote for prohibition, then we will be at the tail. Shall we vote for prohibition? She asked. Yes, to a man everywhere, she replied, and perhaps I shall shock some of you if I say, if necessary, vote on the Sabbath day for prohibition if you cannot at any other time. This is 3 Bio, page 160. This is also not just talking about voting for a referendum on a subject, a yes or no type thing. Do you want more alcohol sales? Do you want to prohibit alcohol sales? That's not what she's talking about. She's talking about voting for men who will work to enact laws prohibiting the sale of alcohol. And if she said, if necessary, vote on the Sabbath day for prohibition if you cannot at any other time, what would she say for abortion? Yeah, she would be much stronger in favor of voting to get rid of abortion, because abortion is a bigger sin than drinking alcohol ever was. Okay, now I want to go next into the article, continue the article by Paul A. Gordon. This is an article that we started on yesterday, and I want to finish up today. Let's see if I can get it up on the screen here for you so you can read it along with me. Ellen White, the right to vote. Here we go. The right to vote. Let's see if that's going to work. Does that look nice? No. Come on. There we go. Okay. This is by Paul A. Gordon, who was director of the EGW White Estate for 5 years, 1990-1995, part 1 and part 2. The right to vote, shall I exercise it? And yesterday we read part 1. Today we're going to read part 2. This is reprinted from the Adventist Review, September 18 and 25, 1980. Individual members have the right to vote if they choose to do so, but the church should hold itself aloof from politics. Again, just as in his top bubble, if you will, at the top of part 1, he's just a little bit mistaken here. Table of content. Here we go. Last week, I drew 3 conclusions from inspired counsel on the subject of voting. These were: we are to cast our vote on the side of temperance and virtue. Okay, so that virtue would definitely be to get abortion done away with. If we vote, keep your voting to yourself. Do not feel it your duty to urge everyone to do as you do. And this is where we see that he's mistaken in this in how he's interpreting what Ellen White said here, because Ellen White herself urged people to vote as she voted, and she basically told people, and James White did tell people that how they voted. So this is specifically talking about non-moral issues. Okay, and the reason I know for sure is because it says right here, if we vote. She calls us we should vote. If we don't vote, we please Satan. And this is, again, on moral issues, on getting alcohol out of society, and tobacco, and getting abortion out of society. I'm sure she would say getting abortion out of society. But it was unthinkable back in her day. Well, there was a few people who did it, but it was terrible. She calls it murder. She calls abortion murder in her day. We are to stand free from political strife and corruption. This is very true. We're not to get involved in politics for politics' sake. We're to get involved in order to uplift the morals of society. Having considered these points, some questions still persist. Can Seventh-day Adventists participate in certain aspects of politics with good conscience? Are we ever to help in the making of laws? And if so, how? Is it ever proper to hold public office, either elective or appointive? No, these are very good questions, because I know some fellow Seventh-day Adventists. Oh, we could never become a politician. That's an evil job. No, it's not. It's a very good job. It's a very important job. To say it's an evil job is then you're saying that Joseph and Daniel and David and Solomon were all evil. I mean, it's a ridiculous position. Let us consider politics first. Uriah Smith, looking at the political situation in our country in 1884, wrote with insight and pessimism. Fraud, dishonesty, usurpation, lying, cheating, and stealing will largely determine the count, and the party which can do most of this work will probably win. Well, that's a defeatist attitude, and it's mostly true, but it's not what we Adventists should be getting involved in even writing like this. This makes it look like that we are against the government, and that is not. Some years later, George C. Tenney, co-editor of the Review with Uriah Smith, defined pure politics, much as a dictionary does, as something that embraces the sciences and principles of good government, political economy, political science, philanthropy, civil government. In fact, every branch of statecraft and statesmanship are included in pure politics. Well, that's good. If politics is generally practiced were this pure, we would have no argument with it. But we will have to agree with Elder Tenney that politics, as generally known, has become a name for demagogism, a system of personal wire pulling, a cover for chicanery and trickery, with politicians generally having a burning desire for office and its spoils, and legislators moved by one consideration only, the prospect of re-election. Sadly, this is very, very true. L.A. Smith, another co-editor, compared political organization to an army, saying, everybody can understand why it is that an army can easily overcome a mob, and the same reason will explain why the political machine so readily overcomes the people's reform movements. The machine is an organized and thoroughly disciplined army. The people are an unorganized body. Well, that's also quite true. And that's a good point. The church needs to be disciplined and organized. When we all split up into a bunch of different atoms, the church is going to fail. He continued, the only way for the reform movement to cope successfully with the machine would be to organize and put in the field its own machine and follow machine methods of work. But it is in machine politics that the whole evil lies. Well, he's not. He's conflating the problem of a machine he's conflating the thing of having a machine, the point of having a machine, and then he automatically calls it an evil thing. It's not an evil thing. God's denominated people, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, is a machine, and it's something that God set up. So, having the passing decades outdated the foregoing statements, not if we are to believe today's concerned commentators on the political scene. In the setting of these facts in political life, Ellen White's terse comments come through clearly. The Lord would have his people bury political questions. And I wrote this on Pastor Isaac Olatunji's live stream a couple of weeks ago, because in his camp meeting poster for this year in October, he's got a picture of the Seventh-day Adventist speakers, and the left side, and on the right side, he's got a picture of Trump and Vance. And on the part of Vance's picture, the words are mark of the beast. This is completely trying to mix political questions with the Lord's words. And I called him out on it, and he literally, in the live stream, went, phew. So anyway, he's very good on most things. I don't want to be seen as looking down on Pastor Isaac Olatunji. He's very strong on most issues, but when it's something that he does that's wrong, he doesn't have the humbleness to accept it and to repent and move on. Because this is very clear. We are to bury political questions. Well, you say, hey, but you're doing political questions today. You're saying we should vote. Political question is a political question. Abortion is a moral issue. It has become a part of politics because it is the politicians, the lawmakers, who make the laws. And just as Ellen White said that we should vote even if on the Sabbath for prohibition, we should vote even if on the Sabbath for abortion opponents. And there is a former president running whose actions are still saving the lives of literally about 3,000 children in America every. So please vote for life. But we are to bury political questions. We cannot with safety vote for political parties. Well, this is very, very true. Don't just say, oh, because I like this somebody in this party, or this party generally agrees with everything I believe, and just go, okay, just tick every box from that party. Look at what the people are saying and vote appropriately. If they're voting that they want to kill more babies, then don't vote for them. That should be pretty obvious. Let political questions alone. Well, okay, here we've got political questions again. A political question is a point of this world. For example, should we support Israel's war? Should we support Ukraine's war? Should we have free education for college students in America? Should we have a big fence at the border? These are questions that are perhaps very important, but they're not moral issues. They're not something we are to get urge people to vote for or against or to do anything like that. That's not what we Seventh-day Adventists are for. We are for moral issues. Are there moral issues? Yes, there are. There's the same-sex marriage moral issue. There's the transgender moral issue. And there is the abortion, the number one moral issue right there, abortion. And yes, there is one party that supports all three of these abominations, what God calls abominations. One party supports them, and one party is from somewhat against to completely against them. So it's quite obvious who to vote for this election cycle. It is a mistake for you to link your interest with any political party to cast your vote with them or for them. So don't get mixed up in politics. Don't say I'm a something something. I'm a something something. No, we're Christians. We're Seventh-day Adventists. We're not supposed to get affiliated with political parties. Note that the preceding statements do not exclude voting. If we vote, it should be on the basis of the personal qualifications of a candidate, not because he bears a certain party label. That's very wise. What we might call a vote for a straight party ticket is clearly warned against. Very true. If we vote, we should vote intelligently. Yes, and we are called to vote. But it is clear that political questions are not to be brought into our churches. Okay, this is a political question again. Again, should we have a big fence at the border or not? That's a political question. That should not be brought into our churches. Should we kill more babies or not? Yes, that should be brought into our churches. And this reminds me, about 2 months ago, there was a female pastor in Colorado at a Seventh-day Adventist church who laughingly or smiling, she smilingly said that she was involved in a group that helped raise over $1 million for Kamala Harris's election. This is totally against what we are as Seventh-day Adventists. Should not be brought into our churches, nor must the political infatuation, strife, and excitement of politics absorb our time and attention. And again, if it's a moral issue, yes, it should absorb our time and attention. You can read Ellen White's writing. She was very strong. She spent many hours, many days working for prohibition. And she even worked with temperance reform movement people. And this is where she got a lot of flack from other Seventh-day Adventists, because of the temperance reform movement, many of its leaders, they were for Sunday laws. And Ellen White was getting flack from many of them for, hey, what are you doing with these Sunday keepers? You know, that's terrible. And she said, you don't know what you're talking about. We should get this evil out of society. And she says, maybe if we work with them, they will come to our position on the Sabbath issue. That's very wise. Okay. And the rest of this it's pretty simple. When I say simple, it's not really that important. Will not wear political badges. Okay, we're not to wear political badges. In a statement first published as a tract in 1899, Ellen White said, "We are not to vote for men that use their influence to repress religious liberty. For if we do, we are partakers with them of the sins which they commit while in office." Okay, I'm sorry. This is one very, very strong, powerful quote that many people use to say, "I will not vote." And this is one that my mother used to say, "I will not vote." And it's taken out of context. "We cannot with safety take part in any political scheme." She said Christians will not wear political badges. She's specifically talking about there's a badge that people used to wear in her day, that I am such and such a party. In other words, I'm a member of this party. And who are you? Oh, you're a member of that party. You got a different badge on. And some people would even come into, I don't know if it's a church or a camp meeting, wearing their political badges. And she was distraught. She said, "This should not be, and it should not be. This is very bad to identify as Seventh-day Adventist Christians." Okay, but here let's cover this. We are partakers. We are not to vote for men that use their influence to repress religious liberty, for if we do, we are partakers with them of the sins which they commit while in office. So many people, they don't know the first part of this quote, and they just use this last part. They say, "Oh, I cannot vote at all, because if I do, I'm a partaker of the sins of those people that they commit while in office." It's obviously not what it's talking about. I mean, even in the church, we vote for church leaders, church officers. Every 5 years, they vote for a new general conference president. So then does that mean that everybody who voted for Ted Wilson last time, they are partakers of the sins that he commits during this tenure in office? No, that's not at all what it's saying. What it's saying here is that if they say, that they are against religious liberty, that they want to do something to repress religious liberty, and we still vote for that person, then yeah, we are partakers of that. That's obvious, because we voted for them. And in the same vein, if you know that someone is going to support aborting more children, more the least of these my brethren, in other words, more of baby Jesuses, and you vote for them, then yes, you are partakers of the sins. Those children's blood will be on your hats. Okay, but what about just not voting at all? I don't want to partake of anybody's sins. I'm just not going to vote at all. Well, then you are cursed by God. According to the Bible, it says, "Cursed is Meraz for not coming up to help the Lord in the against the mighty." So sitting on the fence in a moral crisis is a cursed position. So how do I internalize this? How do I understand this? Again, if the person who's running for office says, "I'm going to do this sin and this sin and this sin," of course, they won't say it's a sin, but they'll say, "I'm going to do this and this and this." And we can tell from the Bible that that's a sin. And then if we still vote for them, then we are partakers of that sin. Okay, now there's a nuance. There's a nuance here for me. And I don't know if this will work for you, but I believe this to be true. Every human alive today has faults. We all have faults. We're all sinners. Maybe this person running for office has 3 things that they are for that are against the Bible. And maybe this person has 1 thing they are for that's against the Bible. Okay, we need to use our God-given brain and determine which of these subjects is more important. Now, maybe it's possible that this person over here who has just the 1 sin that they say that they're going to support, it may be so big that it's bigger than all these 3 put together. Like for example, maybe this person says, I want to make laws increasing more alcohol sales. Let's have more alcohol sales, and let's have what's something else? Let's something. I don't know. Let's allow stealing up to $200 worth in stores, and something else. Let's allow taking a little bit of land away from people, something like that. Okay, these are all sins. And this person over here says, I'm for killing more of the least of these, my brother. I'm for more abortion. Well, this one obviously is much larger sin than all three of these put together. So I would still vote for this person over here in order to keep the larger sin from happening. And I believe this is biblical because let's just say that at the time Christ was born, it was a democratic society and the people could vote for the leaders. And there was a person named Herod and there was a person named Pilate. And let's just say, and Herod said, if you vote for me, I'm going to kill all the babies under 2 years old. Pilate's not a good example, is he? Let's just say Pilate says, I'm going to take all the land away from the shepherds, and I'm just going to use it for my private palace. Okay, who should you vote for? Taking land away from people it's a sin. Killing all the babies under 2 years old is a sin. Which do you think is the larger sin? Which should you use your influence for to stop? I'm not going to take part in either one. You just do your thing and I'll do my thing and I'll sit the fence on this one and I'm holy. I don't have either of your sins. Now that's a wrong position. That's evil. Okay. So this idea that we are partakers with them of the sins which they commit while in office is only talking about if they state it publicly that they are going to do that and we still vote for them. And that voting for that person was a worse sin than voting for the other person. Because I've said this before and I'll say this again. If one candidate says, I will introduce a Sunday law, we should have everyone going to church on Sunday in America. The other person says, I want to see the least of these, my brethren, destroyed. I don't want the kids to come out of the womb alive. Then who should we vote for? Anybody? Nobody? Well, of course we vote for the person who says Sunday law. That's just obvious. If you can't make it out of the birth canal alive, nothing else matters. She counseled that teachers who distinguish themselves by their zeal in politics should be relieved of their work. Ministers who desire to stand as politicians shall have their credentials taken from them. That should have been what happened to that woman in Colorado, but just the fact that she is a woman and is a pastor means that our Seventh-day Adventist leaders in that conference don't care about following what Ellen White has written. But what about personal participation in lawmaking? Can we hold office and not violate our Christian responsibilities? Two statements by Ellen White bear careful study. In Education, page 262, we read, many a lad of today, growing up as did Daniel in his Judean home, studying God's word and his works, and learning the lessons of faithful service, will yet stand in legislative assemblies, in halls of justice, or in royal courts as a witness for the King of Kings. Okay, so this is not just standing up as like A.T. Jones did against the Sunday law of his day, but this is saying that they will be working there. They will stand in legislative assemblies. This witness is not limited to occasional appearances on behalf of specific issues and in fact includes participation in legislative decisions. It's evident from another statement Ellen White made in address to the teachers and students of Battle Creek College. November 15, 1883, she said, this is not quoted correctly. This is not written correctly, probably in the E.G. White. The E.G. White Estate has quite a few spelling errors. Have you thoughts that you dare not? Oh, this is correct. Have you thoughts that you dare not express that you may one day sit in deliberative and legislative councils and help to enact laws for the nation? There is nothing wrong in these aspirations. Fundamentals of Christian education. I'm sorry, this is correct. This is very good. Have you thoughts? Ellen White went on to explain the circumstances under which it is proper to accept such responsibilities. She said that we are not to be content with low goals, but we are to remember that the fear of the Lord lies at the foundation of all true greatness. We are to hold all temporal claims and interests in subjection to the higher claims of the gospel of Christ. She also indicated that as disciples of Christ, you are not debarred from engaging in temporal pursuits, but you should carry your religion with you, and balanced by religious principle, you may climb to any height you please. Notice that the climbing is to be balanced by religious principle. Further, our God-given powers and talents are not to be perverted to do evil and destroy others, or to be used to spread moral ruin and corruption. So we are to work for moral uplift and not for moral ruin and corruption. Rather, our responsibilities are to be faithfully and conscientiously discharged. Okay, and she goes on, that does not rule out holding office. And a rather unusual editorial by Uriah Smith stated Elder William C. Gage has been elected mayor of the city of Battle Creek. The editorial went on to explain that the advocates of temperance in the city had felt betrayed by current office holders, and when no other man could be persuaded to run against him, Elder Gage had been approached. The editorial continued, when it appeared that to decline absolutely would be to jeopardize the interests of the temperance cause, he accepted, and the people ratified the nomination, giving him a plurality. And Elder Gage is obviously a Seventh-day Adventist here, and he was voted into mayorship of Battle Creek, Michigan. But both Smith and G.I. Butler, the president of the General Conference, they appeared to be apologetic for the election of Gage. The same issue of the review, Elder Butler urged support of the temperance issues, but cautioned we have not time or ability to waste in the arena of politics while the cause of God is languishing. It may be of interest to note that halfway through his one-year term as mayor, Gage was strongly rebuked by Ellen White. She said, he has ever been a curse to the church in Battle Creek. She added, I warn the people of God not to take this man as their pattern. He did something in office. It wasn't because he became mayor that she rebuked him, but not to take him as a pattern. He was doing some sin. And if anybody's interested in that, I'll check up more on it. There were fair and just rulers in Bible times. There were also cruel and unjust rulers. And it talks about Joseph and Daniel, which is very appropriate in this discussion because they were high up in government. And there's Mordecai the Jew, sat in the king's gate, was one of King Ahasuerus' servants. And of course, Esther became the queen. So, I mean, these are all people who went high up in civil governments and in heathen civil governments. Not even talking about David and Solomon. Let's see. And we are called to pay taxes in the Bible. It's responsible until Christ returns. In summary, he says, we record a portion of an editorial appearing in the Review and Herald of September 12, 1928 by Elder F.M. Wilcox. The Seventh-day Adventist Church does not seek to dictate to its members as to how they shall vote or whether or not they should vote at all. It is left for each one to act on his own judgment in the fear of God. We've been told by the servant of the Lord that we should not link up with political parties, that we should not agitate political questions in our schools or institutions. On the other hand, we have been instructed by the same authority that when certain moral issues, such as prohibition are involved, the advocates of temperance fail to do their whole duty unless they exert their influence by precept and example, by voice and pen, and vote in favor of total abstinence. This instruction is not mandatory. It is still left for each one to determine for himself what he shall do. But she says, if we don't vote, we please Satan. While an individual member of the church has a right, if he so likes, to cast his vote, the church as such should hold itself entirely aloof from politics. It is one thing for the individual members of the church to vote, and another thing for these same individuals in the church capacities to endeavor to influence political measures. Again, political measures and moral measures are different. Okay, I think that's the end of this article by Paul A. Gordon. It was quite well done. White says that we must vote or we please Satan, and we've covered the quote that we take the sins of those political leaders that get into office on ourselves if we vote for them. That is only if we knew about those sins that they were planning to carry out while they were in office. And again, that is if their sins were greater than the other's sins. I mean, we're all sinners. Anyway, we're supposed to vote. Don't get me on this other stuff. I'll never end here. Okay, God bless you today, and thank you for watching this.